My name is Aisha, and I am the founder of Remake. This is the thank you. This is the Wear Your Values on Your Sleeve session. And people are going to be trickling in, but I really want to keep this interactive and have a conversation with you. So raise your hand, shout out your questions, bring up your disagreements. If you scooch forward, maybe it'll be a little bit more fun. All these rows are empty here. But in the next 30 minutes, what I'm going to do is start with really telling you arming you with facts that the fashion industry does not want you to know. And then take you on a speedy but global journey from China to Haiti to Pakistan for you to meet the inspiring, incredible, resilient women that make our fashion around the world. And then leave you with practical ways for you to remake your closet so that we can all really, truly wear our values. And so to get us started, I wanted to play a quick clip of when we think about sustainable fashion, because often it's a pretty misunderstood term. What does it mean, and how do you do it? In terms of how we think about all of us as women can truly wear our values and remake our closet.
A woman your age made that shirt for you. Do you know where she's from? With Remake, you can wear your values.
I can wear my values?
Download the guide at remake.world. Discover why fast fashion is out and slow fashion is in.
We can wear our values.
We can wear our values.
So as we get into the conversation, I wanted to tell you 3 short stories. The first is the story of our clothes. We as Americans are increasingly buying more and more. It's up 4 times over the last 10 years. And yet what's interesting is even though we're buying more, we're wearing it for less time and then we throw it away. And it's also that our clothes, if you discount for inflation, cost less than they ever did before. So then you start to do the math, right? How is this coming to me sooner, faster, cheaper, and yet somehow costing less than my favorite hipster coffee? This is Austin. I know y'all love your hipster coffee. And so you have to think about, well, why does it cost less than that? And so you see, this is a phenomena, what we call at Remake fast fashion. Think of fast fashion as no different to fast food. It's sold to us as this convenient, cheap, easy thing. But then it's only 10 years later that we started to realize that fast food, it makes us really sick and it's giving us diabetes. And fast fashion is no different. In order for us to get our things so cheap and so fast, we have to cut a lot of corners. And there's a lot of impact, staggering impact on people and our planet. The story of our clothes often starts at the farm level in terms of cotton. Now, cotton is a very thirsty crop. To make just 1 pair of jeans takes 680 gallons of water. So put that in layman's terms, that's how much you or I would drink in terms of water for 2.5 years. Cotton is also really insecticide-heavy product. 24% of the insecticides that we use around the world are used in growing our conventional cotton. And then that eventually finds its way into waterways and our marine life. What's interesting about fast fashion is it comes from my part of the world, so India, China, Pakistan. And a lot of those countries where they make the fast fashion tend to buy their cotton from Uzbekistan. Now, the government of Uzbekistan closes down schools during the summer harvest to force its littlest citizens to pick cotton. And so we can all agree that in order to make the world and wear our values, what we want is for our little girls to go to school. Yet in our quest for cheap clothes, we're actually sending them to fields instead. How many of you, and I'd love to see a show of hands, think about pesticides in your food? Buy organic when you can. Don't be shy. A lot of you. Now, how many of you, when you've had, a busy week at work and you haven't done your laundry, and so you dash into Gap or Victoria's Secret and buy a pair of new underwear and wear it? Be honest. Just how many of you? Well, there you go. One hand. Sometimes I do these talks, but a lot of people are like, yeah, it's clean, so I didn't do my laundry, so I went and bought it, and it's fine. Don't do that. Because you see, in our clothes today, there's over 8,000 synthetic chemicals. When it comes to restricted substances, a lot of things that are known carcinogenics, that are known as endocrine disruptors, that give us cancer, that are banned in the European Union, are not banned here in the United States. As someone who spent a lot of time in mills and laundry facilities, the icky chemicals, that smell, it leaves your throat raw. And then you start to look at the people that are handling it and think that this is eventually going to end up on my largest organ, my skin. And it really makes you wonder, especially when it comes to intimates. And this is, again, another way that fast fashion cuts corners, by putting chemicals. You know that new clothes smell? You know what I'm talking about? You pull it out and take a smell. It like smells a particular way. Do you know what that is? It's formaldehyde. And it's formaldehyde is put in our clothes, especially if it's coming from China, in order to not have mildew as the clothes are being shipped around the world. Formaldehyde is mostly used in construction. There's only one other purpose for formaldehyde. It's to preserve dead bodies before we bury them. And that's also another chemical that's in our clothes. So we move from the chemical process, and one of the things that I've been heartened by, you look at the Oscars and the red carpet and the women who market as fashion, right? And we've seen this growing chorus of Me Too and Time's Up, and you think about just the misogyny and the awfulness that happens with models, and it's inspiring to see them raise their voices. Here's what's interesting. There are officially over 60 million people that make our fashion. The unofficial numbers are a lot higher because, there's a lot of shadowy supply chain. And of the people who power our clothes, 80% are women. And, in meeting so many of them, a lot of them will say that we are routinely assaulted, harassed, because most of the people, because they're docile on the factory floor, tend to be women. Everyone, supervisor and up, tends to be a man. And so then you're left to question, where is the Me Too movement for her? Anyone know what this image is? Show of hands. A few nodding faces. This is on April 24th, and I always choke up no matter how many times I do this. So excuse me a minute, 2013, where a big factory complex collapsed. It was a 5-story building, and that morning in Savar, Bangladesh, when the women were walking into the factory, they had already started to see huge cracks in the building. And a lot of them were saying, this doesn't look safe. But their supervisors were like, you have to go in because we're on a deadline and we have to get these clothes shipped on time. That entire building collapsed. Over 1,134 mostly young women lost their lives that day. It took weeks to pull bodies out of the wreckage. And for those of us on the inside, this is where it got really personal for me. I'm first generation Pakistani American. I often think about this, that she could be me and I could be her. And I wish I could tell you that this was an anomaly, that it was just this one awful spot. But the truth is, Rana Plaza happened on the back of the Tazreen factory fire. And right after Rana Plaza, we had Ali Enterprise. If fashion continues to do business as usual, we are poised by 2030 to be at 1.6 million accidents and injuries. And so, how does this story make you feel? Because the end of the story is here in a landfill. And a lot of you might think I do the right thing when I'm ready to clean out my closet. I take it off to Goodwill. Only 10% of what we donate actually makes it to the secondhand markets. It's because we're just consuming too much. There are countries in North Africa that are pushing back to say, we don't want your cheap clothes anymore. Our landfills are overfilled. You're destroying our local markets. And then the other thing to know is, if you go and check a lot of your closets, most of the clothes are polyester blend. They're no longer just pure cotton. And so when you have polyester in your clothes, because it's oil-based, it takes a long time to degrade. It can take up to 200 years sitting, those piles and piles of clothes. So how does this story make you feel? It's like a horror movie, right? It's awful. This room is kind of cavernous. You're like, oh my God, this girl, she's really thoroughly depressing me. And the truth is that since the 1990s, since we've offshored production, we as activists have failed you. Because we've been telling you this same story over and over again. Look how awful, the formaldehyde, the accidents, the children. And the truth is, in the deep recesses of all of your brains, you likely have known this story already. But we live in this 24-hour news cycle that only wants to focus on the most awful things, right? The genocide of the Rohingya Muslims, the chemical gas attacks of the Syrian refugees, the thinking about gun violence right here at home. And then you're to say, okay, so our clothes come from awful places, now I feel terrible, and then apathy starts to set in. You just say, I have to get on with my own life, and I just don't know what to do. My sister's here, and she often tells me if we're going somewhere fun, she's like, that thing that you do after you've had a glass of wine where you're like, did you know how much formaldehyde there is in your clothes? Or did you know that this? She's like, just don't do that. It's not a cute party trick. So let me tell you a completely different story. This is a story about love. It's a story about fierceness and badass women. Would you rather hear that story? So as I said, there's 60 million amazing, young, resilient women that make our clothes in factories around the world. What's interesting is she's in her early 20s, the same demographic as the Vogue generation that reads Teen Vogue. Also the same age as most of the purchasers of fast fashion. She is usually supporting upwards of 4 to 5 family members on her salary. This is also one of the biggest mass migrations of our lifetime, where she's moving from the villages and the comforts of her home into factories. And so being in the factory is her coming of age story, sort of as our coming of age story on college campuses. She's really curious about you. The thousands of women I've met around the world is always this question of, do they think about us, the people who wear the clothes that we make? And she's increasingly digitally connected. This is Maud from Wanament, Haiti. It's a little factory town right on the border of DR. And the first time I was ever in Haiti, I was really overwhelmed. It's just human need everywhere. Open sewers, children with their shoes, with no shoes, playing in the garbage. And there's this pristine, beautiful factory that's running around the clock, that has electricity. And then you cross the road to the Massacre River, across the Massacre River into the maker community, and it's dark because there's no electricity, there's no water. But Maud didn't want to talk to me about any of that. The first thing she did was whip out her smartphone, because it's the first purchase often that women make when they save enough money. And she added me on WhatsApp and on Facebook. And it was International Women's Day last week, right? Shout out to amazing women that we know. And she sent me a message wishing me happy International Women's Day. And what Maud does in factory, she's 23 years old, she's been doing this for over 4 years, is she sews your pant pockets. And I said, Maud, if you could sit down with the woman who's actually wearing the clothes, what would you tell her? And she said, tell her that I want you, when you see Made in Haiti or you see a pant pocket, that I hope you remember my beautiful smile. This is Ming. She is 19 years old. She works in a mill in Guangzhou, China. Now, Ming's workstation, it's about the square of this stage here. And, when you're in a mill doing quality control, what you're doing is you're looking over and over again, I have to talk louder, at fabric. And for 12 hours a day, that's all she does. With the human eye, she's looking at fabric to ensure that there's no defects, there's no spots. And at the end of her 12-hour shift, and she's standing because her workstation doesn't allow her to sit, she goes to her dorm, which is very common in China because she comes from the Yulian district. It's really far, so she goes to the dorm where her roommate, who is then going to go in the other 12-hour shift because the factory never closes. They're just churning the product out to get to us, right? And so I asked her, I'm like, you go from this tiny workspace to this tiny room, like, how do you escape? She's like, when I lay in my bed, I think about skydiving. And one of my dreams is to be a world-renowned photographer where I'd follow the fabric from Guangzhou, China, to all the beautiful women who are going to be draped on it, and I'd take their picture. And what I really want more than anything else is to find a boyfriend. This is Rubina from my hometown of Karachi, Pakistan. She works at the very end of the story of our fashion, where she is pulling out the loose threads from our hoodies and our sweatpants before they're packed and shipped to us. And so she sits there pulling the threads out. She's 24 years old. And when her dad got sick, because her brothers don't work, which is quite common, you hear again and again these stories of resilience where it's the woman that's like leaving the home for the first time. She supports her entire family with her salary. And what she was telling was, at first it was quite scary. You enter the factory gates, you're getting catcalled. You have the supervisors walking up and down, yelling at you to move faster. And that when she started to see these injustices, she was quite shy. But 3 years in, she and the women, Rubina is the essential, sort of quintessential badass woman. They started banding together because unions didn't really properly represent them and fight for their rights. And what she told me was, if there are women out there that see the Made in Pakistan label, I want them to know me. And I don't want them to feel sorry for me. I'm not a victim. And so these are the women that really give me hope. And it's our dream at Remake. We are 2 years old. At this point, we've filmed in 9 different countries, that every single Made in label in your closet, that we'll have a human face and a story for you. So do me a favor, lean over to someone you don't know, say hello, and only if they want to, just lean and have a look at their label, their jacket or their dress, and let's give a shout out to some of the countries that are represented in this room. Yeah. Yeah, under the Remake shirt maybe. Yeah. Yeah. So do we have China, Los Angeles? Yeah. Rubbed out. Portugal, yeah. Morocco. Vietnam. Italy. Peru. Bangladesh. Isn't that stunning? That you can sort of have the whole world and all of these women's hopes and dreams represented in your closet. And so that's really what is the first step in our journey, is to get you to re-meet all of them in a fundamentally different way. So I'm super excited. We're just back from filming in Sri Lanka, where our Made in Sri Lanka documentary is dropping on the 31st of March. And so I thought I'd give you a quick preview. This trailer, literally we cut it this morning. So have a look.
Right now, to me, fashion means a lot of problems.
This is insane.
I think when people design clothes, they're thinking about the glamorous part of it.
Can you imagine working at this speed for hours?
ඒ නිසා අර ඉන්න පුළුවන් ගාන හරිය වැඩ කරලා යන්න තමයි බලන්නේ.
පැක්‍රීම් බලන්න උපරිම වෙලාවක් වැඩ ගන්නනේ. ඒක එහෙම තමයි.
ඔව් ඉතින් අර එහෙම දැක්කහම උනත් දුක හිතනවා ටක් ගාලා ගෙදර කට්ටිය මතක් වෙනවා.
එතකොට කවුරුවත්ම නැත්නම් ඒ වෙනුවෙන් වැඩ කරන්න වෙන එකම දේ තමයි එක්කෝ වහල්ලු හැටියට මේක වැඩ කරන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා.
There needs to be a lot of empathy. These are where my clothes are coming from. These are the women making these clothes.
I think I'm gonna have a totally different approach to how I create.
So this brings me to my third and final story, which is the story of all of us as consumers. And this really is a story of hope. And I tell you why I'm hopeful. You know, fashion has always been an extension of our identity. We want to do with our clothes is sort of signal to the world what we stand for. And what's been interesting, especially in the last couple of years, is, you know, we're seeing a rise of graphic tees when a lot of feminist swag, you know, it's like feminist as fuck, girl boss, the future is female. You know, this was a bestseller on the runway. And it's interesting, there's knockoffs being sold on Amazon. So I took a look. And this future is female shirt was sold for $8.99. Let that sit for a minute. $8.99. And it just so happens that it's made in Sri Lanka, where we had just spent a week talking to the women who make this shirt. And what she tells me is that minimum wage is not keeping up with everything else that's becoming expensive for me. It's 5 times less than what I would need to make to eat and be safe and live safely. And so if I have a toothache or there's a death in my family, what I'm doing is I'm taking predatory loans, and then to pay off that interest and debt, I'm doing precarious sex work on the side. And so you got to say, okay, wait a minute. So here I'm emblazing the future is female, but I'm actually not thinking about the actual female who made that. And so I think the fact that we want our clothes to do more is the first sign of hope. But I think the next step really is to simply just break up with fast fashion. You know, it's, think about Forever 21, Zara, H&M, the volume of clothes that they're just pumping into the system, and it all looks the same. You know, these are poorly constructed clothes. The buttons fall off, they're run off seams. You don't love them because it doesn't feel nice on your body. So after that initial happiness, you're like, I'm not even really going to wear this. You throw it away. It's sort of like Tinder, right? It's quantity over quality. So just swipe left. It says that it takes 6 weeks to change a habit. And so I really think, you know, bit by bit, I get letters from women around the world to say, it changed my life because I think about all the awful things, and then there's just this one little thing that I can do that can make a difference. So once you decide, okay, I'm going to do this, you know, and I really think about slow fashion, much like our relationship with food. You know, we want to eat more fruits and vegetables. We want to eat more organic. But then, you know, it's like, oh, I'm going to get drunk at South by, and maybe I'll eat that cake, and then tomorrow I'll start all over again. And it's the same way. You know, it's as opposed to all the guilt that we as activists have been throwing at you, is to say, this is a journey for me to remake my closet. I'm going to get fewer, better things slowly but surely. And in order to jumpstart your journey, I've left you a little present on your seats. You know, there's the Wear Your Values pin, which I hope you wear with pride and you feel the story and the power of the women that I've shared with you. But in that wallet guide, rather than just telling you, this is bad, don't buy this, we've also given you ideas of what to buy. And so, you know, we're a human rights organization. We are not vested or connected to the brands that are on our platform in any way. The only thing we do is looking at all the public disclosure data, is making it easy for you to find better brands, pro-women brands, brands that are thinking about sustainability holistically, from the cotton to the factory to the end of life, who are taking a leadership stance on climate and water, and using language around the well-being of the communities that they support, not the compliance by the law, because the truth is we are producing in a lot of countries where the law is right here and enforcement is even lower. And so we are really looking for the breakthrough brands that are braver. And the only way they're going to survive and fight against this multi-billion-dollar profitable fast fashion machine is with our dollars, right? We can vote for them. And so the next time you clear out your closet, you want to buy something, I hope you come to our platform and that you're thinking about and buying, you know, that next dress, that next t-shirt that's slightly more expensive, but it's going to last you. And you know, I often get this question, is this a bourgeois conversation? You can afford it, okay, great. But what else can I do? I'm a student or I'm heavily in debt. And the truth is there's so many baby steps, and we talk about this on our platform all the time. Like one thing, how often do you wash your jeans? Every week? Yeah, he's right back there. Never. You should never wash your jeans. Jeans are really a durable fabric. And the truth is that they were built initially for, gold miners going out, working the fields. Unless they're stained, you could literally wash your jeans not for a whole year. So there's one way, because the amount of times that we are washing, and a lot of the carbon water impact is that the consumer use face just washing less. You're like, okay, well, that's very hippie. You're from California. That's great. What else can I do? Yes. No, it depends on sort of whether they're fast fashion jeans. If it's coming from China, then more so. And it depends on how much there's denim versus other things that are mixed. Yeah. So if it's cheap, likely yes. And then think about also just all the synthetics and dye and the indigo dye. And then when you're washing it a lot, it's also getting into our water systems. And then that has impact on marine life. The other thing you can do is cold wash and line dry, especially if you have your intimates, you have your beautiful tops, things that, when you open the dryer and you sort of scoop out that flint and you throw it in the trash before you put your clothes in the dryer. You know what that is? That's literally pieces of your clothes falling apart because you've washed them on high heat. So just sort of caring for your clothes, knowing that loving clothes last. There's also a lot more vintage options out there, whether it's rail, where it's sort of luxury consignment, all the way to your local vintage shop. So you're saying, I'm going to slow down this cycle of constantly buying and throwing away. The rental options are also really fascinating, whether it's accessories from Le Tote or going to a cocktail party or a wedding from Rent the Runway, and you look fabulous, and then you send it back and you're the belle of the ball, and then you can have something else. So consignment, rental, washing your clothes differently, all the way to you buy something that you love and then you wear it over and over again. Because you see, real fashion is about style. It's not about the trends. And a lot of trends, you go look at Forever 21, H&M, Uniqlo, it all looks the same. It's actually not that cute. It isn't. And then when you start to think about, some of the models who are bragging about $21 and I'm on the runway and don't I look great? And you have to think in your head, actually, this is abusive to women. It's awful for our planet. What you look is really stupid. And so it's almost like we have to change what's being marketed to us, this culture that makes us believe that bulk and cheapness is a good thing. So I wanted to end with, this is my Oprah moment. Are you ready? Oh. Anyone know Oprah? She'd be a great spokesperson for this. But you know how when you were at the Oprah show, it's like, everybody won a Prius or whatever it is that Oprah gives away. I'm not going to do that. But, all the brands that we're showcasing, some of them are little guys. They do incredible work. They were super excited that we were bringing this movement to South by for the first time. And so we are giving away an entire ethical closet to one lucky winner. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to whip out your phones right now. Go to remake.world. Ready? And as soon as you do that, there'll be a pop-up that comes to say, win an ethical closet, $1,000 worth of product from incredible brands, and just enter to win. That's it, you're done. You'd also signed up for our mailing list, which is important to know we never spam, just once a month. We send you stories of the women who make our clothes, first-hand documentary footage, and help you discover better brands. And so you enter, you have the wallet guide, and there you're armed. You guys don't realize this, but I've officially ordained you into the conscious fashion movement. There are bits and baby steps and ways that we can all really wear our values in a way that matters and make a difference and say that our consumer power is also a form of activism. That is all. There's nothing more powerful than a moment whose time is here. And I truly believe from the conversations we're having around the US that the time for conscious fashion is here. So I hope that you will join me.